Look at your lock screen. That's your reason to keep going.
That's pretty cool. What's mine? Stupid child. Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Stonesy Reads. That intro? Pretty good, huh? Well, funny you should say that. I made that 3 weeks ago. And, this video should be coming out sometime in August, where it should be the insert number day I stream, even though this is recorded the day of my first stream. This is before it. It's 11:27. I hope to get this done by, I have enough time to go get myself something to eat and stuff, but, you guys don't care about that. So let's just get to the reading part, shall we? We shall. Last time, these little idiots, they just went into like a spooky place, and then it's the oh no bads. You feel me? Yeah, you feel me. Yep. I just need to get my chair situated. Then we get started. Yep. I never situate my chair when I read, so it's nice. It's gonna be this episode and one after it, and then we are officially done with the book. So next episode is we're done. So that's cool. Come over here, Devin said. Although his side of the building looked like it was just choked by blackberry bushes as the other side, Devin knew better. He stepped over a chunk of broken concrete and bent over. "Do what I do," he said to the others. Bent almost double, Devin poked his head into what looked like an impassable blackberry bush. But once you got close, it was clear the brush was growing around something. Devin didn't have any idea what something was, but it had to be opening. He dropped to his knees, and "You have to crawl," he called back to the other boys. Mick groaned, but Kelsey shrugged and said, "That's the life of an urban explorer." Devin grinned. Kelsey was wearing jeans with torn knees. Devin was sure they were the kind who brought already torn, the kind that cost $100 at least, more than his mom would ever pay for a pair of jeans. "It will be worth it, I swear. Just go low," Devin encouraged. He crawled forward. He knew Mick and Kelsey would follow him, but they were too curious not to. After about 4 feet of tunneling through a narrow opening, he reached a place that he could stand up, so he did, brushing off his legs and waited for the others. He looked up and around. He still wasn't sure what it was. It was a rounded enclosure. It was some sort of novelty entrance, maybe, to a restaurant. He thought part of the entrance had collapsed, which was what had made for the tunnel-like way in and what had protected his part of the weather and forest's damp air. "This is awesome sauce," Mick said, popping next to Devin. His breath smelled like a favorite grape soda, and his hair smelled like sweat. Kelsey got to his feet and looked around. Devin noticed one of Kelsey's knees was bleeding. "What is it?" Mick said. "We used to live by the ocean," Kelsey said, "and there was a gift shop in the shark side of the entrance. I think this is like that. Not a shark, obviously, but some kind of animal head. See? There are the eyes." Devin looked up to see where Kelsey pointed. He missed what he was here for. To give himself credit, the first time he was here, it was dark. It was Friday evening, and he wanted to find an abandoned building before Kelsey's buddy from his last town could. So he headed off to the after dinner. His mother fallen asleep on the sofa as she always did. He got into the woods to explore. He wasn't sure what he went that night, but maybe he hoped to get lost. He wasn't really scared. He didn't really care. He just wanted to forget what had happened that afternoon. But instead of being lost, he found this place. As he explored it, an idea informed. He nurtured that idea all day, Saturday through Sunday morning brunch with his mom. When he fell asleep again, he returned and poked around some more. His idea grew into a full-fledged plan. The eyes, Kelsey pointed, were two round, dirty windows placed where eyes would be if that was, in fact, a head, and the place where the collapsed area lay where the animal's snout might be. "I think you're right," Mick said. Mick turned around and gestured at the boarded door. He said to Devin, "So now what?" On the left side of the door, 2 boards leaned against the wall. Devin reached out and moved the boards, revealing a light window. Next to the door, the glass sidelight was broken out. "Did you do that?" Mick asked. "Sure did. You want to take me to jail?" Haha. Mick frowned at it. "You expect me to get through there?" Admittedly, the sidelight was narrow, but Devin had slipped in with no problem, and he figured even Mick could manage it if he sucked in his stomach and gave him a push. Yes, I do. That's why I brought this. He pulled from his backpack a roll of duct tape, and while Mick and Kelsey watched, Devin covered the inside of the window frame which held the glass with thick tape. This is where you won't cut yourself when you squeeze through, he told Mick. Kelsey stared at Devin for a couple minutes and then said, thoughtful. Yeah, thanks, Mick said. That's me, Devin thought, Mr. Nice Guy. When he was done taping, he turned sideways and slid through the opening. Once inside, he called, even though the skylight is dirty, it's let in enough light to see, mostly. Mick, why don't you go next? I'll pull you if you get stuck. And Kelsey, you push. Okay, Mick and Kelsey caressed. Mick's soft, round shoulder pushed through the opening. He failed out his hand, and Devin grabbed it and pulled. Ow, Mick protested as he escaped the opening, stumbling to get his balance. Kelsey slid through behind Mick. You okay? Mick rubbed his belly. Yeah. They all looked around. Coolness, Mick said. He stood in the middle of the huge square room lined with pictures of funky animal characters alternated with crazy and colorful geometric patterns. A domino-like stack of chairs sat against one wall, and another stack of tables on the other wall. At one end of the room, a stage, his red velvet fringe curtains pulled back, presided over the room, and on the stage, Creevy. Mick was rooted to a dirty red aluminum floor. Its gaze latched onto the three figures on stage. What is it, a chicken? Kelsey gasped, gawking at the same direction. I think so, Devin said. Why does it have a cupcake? Devin asked. Maybe it was a baking chicken, Kelsey said, and immediately golfed. Devin couldn't help himself, but he laughed. Good one. Mick laughed too. Yeah, his stomach growled. I wish I was a real cupcake. Come on, Kelsey walked toward the stage. Good. He was getting into it, Devin smiled. He and Mick followed Kelsey to the stage and looked two figures closely. Looking back at them, but of course that wasn't possible. Not at all. Devin had to admit that he was more comfortable being here today than he had been the day before. Yesterday he'd been spooked, and he only came back today because they're animatronic, Kelsey said. Yeah, Devin said. That's what I thought. Animatronic? Like robots? Mick asked. Sort of, Kelsey said. Animatronics can be powered in different ways. Sometimes they use pneumatics and hydraulics, sometimes electricity, sometimes they're computer-driven. How do you know all that? Devin asked in spite of himself. Dad worked at an amusement park resort project once. They had animatronic birds. Why a chicken, rabbit, and a bear? Mick asked. A chicken, a rabbit, and a bear walked into a pizza joint, Kelsey said, and all three boys laughed. Kelsey was a funny dude, Devin had to admit. Too bad he had to go, and Mick gasped. Is that a hook? He left the stage. A cave-like protrusion shrouded in the black, heavy curtain announced itself to be Pirate's Cove. Devin had a look behind that curtain and something about that hook. Come on, he said. Let's move here. Like a short, muscles conga line led by Devin's flashlight, the boys did a tour of the dirty pizza place. When Devin had first explored the pizzeria, he felt like he dropped into some kind of warp. Although the interior of the building was damp and there was mildew in places of the ceiling and walls, it didn't have the trash look you'd expect of the abandoned building. It seemed like the restaurant had been closed and no one had been inside of it since. They found the kitchen stripped of its appliances and other equipment, but oddly, several jugs of distilled water lined up the floor by one of the walls. A small office and an old scratch metal desk also had a filing cabinet and intriguingly locked. If Devin didn't have any other plans, he'd want to break it open. Kelsey suggested it, but Devin didn't think they'd get to do that later. He led the other boys to the room with banks, control panels, and the ancient chunky computer screens, and when they visited a couple disgusting bathrooms with broken tile, cracked sinks, and exposed pipes, while they were in the bathroom, Devin was pretty sure he heard something slithering through the walls. He didn't say anything, but the way the other boys' face paled, he knew that they heard it too. They didn't mention it either, but they all quickly crowded through the bathroom door and ended up in the narrow hallway. The best part is down here, Devin said, motioning the others to follow him. Devin's heart rate picked up speed. He could almost hear adrenaline revving in a starting line. He suppressed a smile. Why do you think that? He wasn't into his cars, 6.2-liter V8s. He sing-songed in his head. Storage? Mick asked. This is what you want us to see? Devin grinned. Yeah, come on. He pushed the door and to the storage room open, shined his flashlight into the room. He stepped back so he could see it. It was like looking into some deranged person's closet. Headless animals flung on the wrong rods that lined two walls of the room. Okay, not actually headless animals, but headless animal suits. The suits were dingy and dusty. Some were dark and mildew. All looked stiff and ragged and ratty, and the fur missing in places. In the opposite wall, 3 rows of shelves held animal heads, bears and rabbits and birds and dogs. Every head looked like a little battered, like it had been used as a bowling ball or something, but the eyes are in place in all of them. They'll still stare straight ahead like you and I we will call. Screepy, Mike said. Devin looked at Kelsey. Kelsey's eyes were bright. He started poking around the cabinets that lined the walls and either side of the door. Look at all this stuff, he said. He pointed at bins of nails, screws, brackets, wires, and what looked like metal joints. He whirled and grinned at Devin. You're a genius, Devin. I think I can salvage one of these suits and maybe build our own animatronic character for my hangout. Devin couldn't help but notice he used the word my last week instead of our. The scent familiar of rushing water filled his ears. He was pretty sure it was blood racing through his veins of excitement. Look over here, he gestured for Kelsey to follow him and then went back to the room, a small corner closet. His feet made raspy cuffs along the floor that sounded bizarrely menacing. Devin had found a closet when he was here the first time, partially hidden behind the costumes hung on the inner wall of the room. He'd seen the potential in it, and he had given him his idea. However, it was a second visit it locked it down, so to speak. Kelsey glanced at Devin and he grasped the closet's metal handle. Stepping back to the side, he slowly pulled up the door in a few inches. Satisfied nothing was going to jump out at him, he opened the door the rest of the way. Devin's flashlight beamed reflected off a pair of big round eyes. Mick crowded behind him. What is that? He also reached for an arm for the human-sized yellow bear standing in front of them. Devin knew what he had discovered. The arm was heavy. It wasn't just a furry suit like the ones hanging in the rods. This suit was... It's an animatronic suit, Kelsey said. It's an animatronic, abilities, I guess. But it can be worn like a costume. I've read about some cutting-edge stuff they're doing with these, where you can get in the suit to read your vital signs and respond to your pulse and temperature and stuff. Some can even respond to specific commands, let the wearer speak in a voice and a character. I'm sure that's not what this is, though. It's too old. I wonder how it works. Hold on the arm again. Let's get it, in the open. I think it'll take all 3 of us. Sure, Devin said. We can do it. It's going even better than he imagined. He thought he was going to talk Kelsey into this, but he looked like he was going to do it all on its own. It was like it was meant to be. The 3 boys grunted with effort. Nick sneezing a few times with dust tufts of the bear fur came loose. Working together, they managed to get the bear suit out of the closet over the middle of the storage room. They laid the bear on its back, panting to catch their breath. They gazed at the strange character, whose sightless eyes looked straight at the ceiling in the model of Devin's flashlight, the room's dark shadows. Let's drag it all out of the main room so we can see it better, Devin suggested. Yeah, Kelsey said. More grunting and sneezing out of the bear suit into the main pizzeria. Once they had it in the middle of the floor, Devin knew it was time. Mick, why don't you go back and find lids in those bins and screws and stuff? You can stack them and bring them out. We can take it with us in Kelsey's hangout. Mick looked in a shoulder gloomy hallway. Take my flashlight, Devin said. Mick looked back at the bear. Devin could see Mick shudder. Okay, he agreed. As soon as Mick left the room, Devin said to Kelsey, that bear looks like you. Huh? Well, not as cool, but his hair sort of the same color, and he's smiling like you usually do. If you got this suit working, it could be a mascot for our hangout. Kelsey grinned. That's not bad. He leaned over and took the bear's head in both hands. Does this come off? He tugged at the bear's head, released from the suit. He looked into the top of the torso and sniffed. It doesn't smell too bad. No worse than the rest of the building. Nope, I noticed that too. He mugged Kelsey and grinned. Try it on. Kelsey studied the suit's neck opening, then shrugged. Why not? He sat down and started wriggling into the torso. Once in, he said, This is pretty comfortable, he grinned. Now the head. Devin had just clicked on the head when Mick shuffled into the room, dragging his stack of plastic lids. No lids, I'm sure how we're going to be able to take this stuff out. He stopped and stared at the bear on the floor. He looked around. Where's Kelsey? I'm in here, Kelsey called up. Mick's eyes widened. What are... Kelsey sat up and said, I'm not sure what to stand in this thing, but hey, I could whack. He began throwing his arms around in elaborate dance moves. When he threw both arms straight out of the sides, and stabbing metallic clapper sounded off the 4 walls around them. The clap was followed by the fingernails on the blackboard, scraping sound. As abruptly as it started, the scraping sound ended with a loud slap. It triggered a cascade of snapping sounds, like dozens of steel animal traps springing into place at the one another. Uh-oh. Kelsey started shrieking at the first snap. Once, when Devin was little, his mom was driving him to school and he ran over a cat on the street. The cat didn't die immediately. Instead, it made a sound that all sounds, suffering, rolling in one, screaming, wailing, howling, and other vocals Devin could even describe. That sonic signature was embedded in Devin's brain, and he always thought it would be the worst thing he ever heard in his life. He was wrong. This was the worst. And the sound wasn't the bad part. It was bad, yes, but the bad part the really, really bad part was the way that suit started jerking a spastic, horrific dance. It looked like the moth-eaten, mildew-blotched gold bear was convulsing. But it wasn't the bear. Devin knew it wasn't the bear. It was Kelsey. What did I do? Devin thought. What's wrong with him? Mick yelled. Devin jumped. He was mesmerized by Kelsey's suffering, and he forgot Mick was there. Kelsey's shriek stopped, like someone or something severed his vocal cord. The suit went still. And then Devin noticed it turning red. Deep, dark, red. Is that? Mick pointed and dropped his knees. That's blood. Yeah, that was blood. Devin sat back on the floor and pulled his feet tight to his body. The blood-saturated bear's matted fur and aluminum was blood red. Devin's blood blended with the floor. The only reason Devin couldn't see it was obviously his blood was moving. It had formed an amobia-like puddle and seemed to be crawling away from the now saturated bear suit. Devin stared at the moving blood like it was out and living, the thinking red liquid like streaking out and seeking. Devin scooted even farther away. He groaned and dropped his head to his hands. This wasn't what he meant to do. He planned to trap Kelsey in the bear suit and leave him like that for an hour or so to freak him out as payback for what had happened. If he had thought for a minute this would he was angry, yes, jealous, since Friday afternoon, maybe even before. He hated Kelsey more than he'd ever hated anyone or anything. He even hated Kelsey more than he hated his missing dad. He hated Kelsey because Kelsey had everything Devin wanted, just when it looked like he had a chance with Heather. Okay, maybe he'd been a little deluding himself about that, but still, he wasn't even given an opportunity to find out. Kelsey stepped in and made friends with everyone in, like, 2 seconds. Devin had been trying a whole new life to make one friend other than Mick. Kelsey had no right to have everything come easily to him. But I didn't mean he deserved this, Dev. Devin brushed his tears and didn't realize he formed in his eyes. Dev! He wiped his face and looked at Mick. Mick was sitting on the floor, opposite side of the bleeding bear suit. Yeah, sure, bleeding bear suit. Devin was really deluding himself. The bear wasn't bleeding, Kelsey was. Devin heard Mick hiccup, and he realized Mick was crying, his dirty face and streaked with tears, giving him a strangely tribal look. He had vertical stripes of war painted on his cheeks. Poor kid, Devin thought. Mick wasn't mature enough to handle something like this. And Devin was? He barked a laugh. Mick's gaze had riveted to the bear suit and flowing blood, whipped to Devin. Why are you laughing? His voice was pitch high. Devin shook his head. Never mind, I think maybe it's shock? Mick stared at him for a few seconds, then shifted his attention back to the suit. He flinched. Look at it. It's still moving. He's still alive. We have to get him out of there. Devin glanced at the suit and kind of pulsed, like it was a large, bloody heart getting its last beats. Mick repeated, we have to get him out of there. We can't, Devin said. What do you mean? Mick, and his mouth hanging open, tears still leaking, his nose running, continued to watch our incredibly trembling suit for how long? Devin wasn't sure. He didn't feel like he was going to be there anymore. Obviously he was, but he wasn't. He was back in the past. He was watching his dad drive away the day he left and never came back. He was watching the tired mother make yet another meal of boxed macaroni and cheese. She was at school watching the other kids laugh and joke at one another. He was hanging out with Mick at the gas station clubhouse. He was watching Heather, wishing that she would notice him. He was relishing the moment when he had his name. He was listening to her talk about justice in social class. He could see her in a red sweater, and he could hear her tinkling bass. I think justice is payback, and intended to do. He wanted justice, payback. Kelsey had hurt him. He made Devin feel like he was going to be part of something, and had thrown Devin away. It stung, like being stabbed with a sharp object. Like he just wanted to be Kelsey to do something similar, and maybe he wanted Kelsey to end up scarred, like Devin was scarred to every rejection he endured. But he hadn't wanted this, not this. Accidents happen, Heather trilled in his mind. Devin yelped, and then Mick shook his shoulder. How did Mick get over here? Devin frowned and shook his cobweb-filled head. Why aren't you answering me? I keep asking you, what do you mean? What do you mean we can't get him out? Mick was close. Too close. Devin could see it's not drying under Mick's nose. I mean, we can't because Devin moaned. Mick studied him for several seconds, and he slowly scooted away from Devin. Did you do this on purpose? Devin didn't answer. Did you? Devin tried to motion his mouth enough to swallow. Did you murder him? Mick screamed. No, Devin shot to the floor and started pacing back and forth. Suddenly, tears poured from his eyes. He couldn't stop them. No. But what just happened? Mick hugged his knees and rocked himself. Devin stared at his bloody suit. He rubbed his face. I wanted to get back at him. By killing him? Mick scrambled to his feet. No. Then what? When I was here before, I found the suit. I tried to put the arm in. His words distorted his sobs. You knew he could see Mick concentrating, trying to understand him. The suit had these locking things inside. Once you snap it in place, it's almost impossible to get it off by yourself. Devin chopped the gauze and back in his hand. where he had torn some skin, escaping the suit's heavy arm. So you knew that would happen. No, I mean, yes, but no, I mean, I only wanted to scare him. I figured once he was locked in, he would just leave him in place until sundown. Just make him sweat a bit. I wanted him to feel something unfair, like he had done to us. Like what it felt like he and his neighbor drove away with. I wanted him to be hurt. Didn't want him to actually get hurt, though. Not like that. The old suit shuddered, and Kelsey let out a single gurgle. He's still alive, Ghost, Mick whispered. He started toward the suit, and Devin grabbed his arm. Don't touch it. Mick broke free. It stared at Devin for a second when he ran toward the building entrance. We have to get help. Devin ran after him and grabbed his arm again. We can't do that. Wait, why? We'll go to jail. You'll go to jail. You want me to go to jail? No, of course not. We have always been in it together. Well, yeah. We're in this together, too. Devin turned and looked at Kelsey, at the blood on the floor. The red velvets weren't spreading as quickly. It was quickly moving, swallowing like an army of red soldiers across the aluminum. We can't possibly get him help fast enough. He's lost too much blood. If we try, we only get ourselves in trouble. Mick stared even harder at Devin. Are you even sorry what happens? Of course I am, Devin yelled. Mick held up his hands. Okay. He took a ragged breath. Okay. Devin realized he was shaking. He felt tremors in both his legs. He had to concentrate and stay standing. He was a murderer. The chill skittered along his neck. He wasn't sure whether what he was feeling was because of what he'd done or because he was afraid of going in a little trouble or for what he's done. He took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Mick rubbed his nose and looked up at Devin as if Devin were trying to make everything better. Devin would never be able to make everything better. We can't undo what happened, he said. We? Mick objected. You make it sound like it was part of it. I wasn't part of it. Okay, me, I can't undo it. So from here, we have a choice. Either we tell and I go to jail, or we don't tell and I don't go to jail. And either way, Kelsey is the same. I wish he hadn't done it. I'm sorry. Very, very sorry. But that doesn't help Kelsey. Me going to jail doesn't help him either. You're saying we should leave him? Mick's voice was hushed. Devin took a deep breath and let it out. Yes, that's what I'm saying. For at least a minute, the two boys stood there. Outside, a crow cawed. Another answered. Inside, the only sounds were those of Devin's Mick open-mouthed breathing. Both were scuffed up from crying. The uneven and quick huffing sounds were eerie, but not as eerie as the dry, scuttling sound. What was that? Devin grabbed Mick's arm. Come on. Where did you leave your backpack? Mick pointed. Against the wall near the entrance. Right, next to Devin's backpack. Devin made himself turn around and look for his flashlight, and lying next to the stack of bins Mick had dragged out of the storage room, making a wide arc well to the bear suit into the blood. Devin strode across the room and got his flashlight. Did you leave anything else? He tried to ignore the fact that the scuttling sound was coming from the bear suit. Mick, whose eyes looked glazed, blinked and looked around. I don't think so. Devin willed his legs functioning right. He still felt like he was shaking all over and he was having trouble breathing. But he had to get him out of there. Shoving his flashlight in his backpack, he grabbed Mick by the arm. Come on, Devin slipped through the sidelight and yanked Mick behind them. Mick grunted, but he didn't complain. Once they crawled out into the late afternoon sunshine, though, Mick spoke up. What about Kelsey's backpack? Devin looked back at the building. Should we go get it? And do what with it? No one would come out there. If they had, they went in. They'd find Kelsey, wouldn't they? So what did it matter if his backpack was there too? Devin looked at Mick. He was looking around at the woods like he was trying to figure out what they were. Devin grabbed his arm. Come on. Devin was afraid to go sleep that night. He thought he'd have nightmares, but he didn't. He was too tired at the end of the day and sleep like a black void. And the black void was his friend. It was a blanket of blissful nothingness that wiped out the events of the day. And a lingering effect the next morning. Well, that was sad. It had a lingering effect the next morning. You know, just whatever I dared do. I read faster than I thought. That's okay. I still need to edit the video, so it's okay. Anyways, that was very sad. What's the lesson I could do? The last time I gave the lesson of don't go into abandoned buildings. Don't go into giant metal suits that you know can harm you. Also, maybe think before you go into a giant suit inside of an abandoned crushing building, I guess. Just pick your choices. I guess that's the lesson of the day. Anyways, hope you guys are having a fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Hope to catch you on these streams. And if I'm not mentally well by the 10th day, let's hope I'm good. I mean, it doesn't matter how I'm good. I have a stomach ache right now that's killing me from the inside, but I still got to stream in 2 hours. So, anyways, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.